Well, hello everybody. My name is Josh Greason. I'm author of the book, God's Will is Always Healing, Crushing Theological Barriers to Healing. Today we're doing a quick preview of chapter 16. It's called Crushing Cessationism. Now, this is one of my favorite chapters because cessationism is a huge thing, at least in certain streams of the church. And for those of you that don't know what cessationism is, it's basically the idea or doctrine that says the gifts of the Spirit passed away at some time in the past. The gifts of the Spirit, things like gifts of healing, working of miracles, etc. This idea, cessationism, says that those things passed away at some point in the past and they're no longer available today. And now, if you have this idea floating around in your head somewhere, you've heard it from your church pulpit enough times, and it's in your thinking, that makes it kind of difficult for you to minister healing to someone or to receive healing from someone ministering to you if you think, oh, well, these things passed away sometime in the past and this must be, something wrong with this situation. Maybe, healing is not available today. And we've got to get this idea out of our heads. And it's such a huge stronghold in some parts of the Western traditional church. And so we examine this idea, cessationism, in depth in this chapter and crush it. We see how church history contributed to the creation of this idea called cessationism. What was the historical situation that contributed to this happening? We also discover that the two church leaders who really solidified the idea of cessationism into doctrinal form, like John Calvin, Thomas Aquinas, those two biggies in the idea of cessationism, they actually allowed for two exceptions to cessationism, which actually totally obliterate the idea from within. Now, some other leaders came along later, like B.B. Warfield and others, and they took away those exceptions and tried to solve the problem, but we'll examine their ideas in depth as well in this chapter. We also examine cessationism's very favorite verse in the whole Bible, at least for most cessationists, those who haven't even really studied it. They think, this particular verse just proves, the gifts have stopped. Well, will the gifts ever stop? Sure. And we actually find out in this chapter when they will stop, but we'll actually find out why their favorite verse that they think says that actually, when you look at it in its context, it proves the exact opposite of what they're trying to use it to prove. And it's been used throughout church history to correct the cessationist idea. We also find out how long the gifts of the Spirit will be available, as I said. We learn the foundation of cessationism is evidentialism, which says that the sole purpose of the gifts of the Spirit is to either prove doctrine or to accredit a messenger. But we look at that idea in light of the Scripture. We actually discover at least 10 other reasons that the gifts of the Spirit exist, 10 other purposes that God had in mind when He brought the gifts of the Spirit to us. And since those purposes are still continuing today, therefore the gifts of the Spirit still have a purpose as well. We also discover 4 biblical commands, things that we are commanded to do, which blatantly contradict the idea of cessationism. We also examine how Jesus taught His disciples, that's us, to do evangelism, ministry, and life, and how these ideas totally crush and obliterate cessationism. Guys, cessationism does not fit in with a full view of the biblical truth and Scripture. So we'll look at that in depth in this chapter. I think it'll be helpful to you and maybe some people you know. You might want to grab a copy of this book just for some of your cessationism friends, just so they can have a little challenge to their idea maybe that they haven't thought about. I think it's good to have our ideas challenged, to really examine them in light of the Scriptures. What do they say? What do they not say? Rather than always listening to the guy behind the pulpit. And examine these ideas in depth for ourselves. Crush unbiblical ideas, get them out of our heads so that we can operate like Jesus did and be like Jesus, because that's the idea, right? So coming up on your screen right now is the information about where you can get a copy of this book. It's available in either paperback or Kindle format. Now, websites are right there on the screen where you can get them. So order yourself a copy, order a copy for someone you love and care about, and you'll both be blessed by it. Guys, I really appreciate these couple minutes you spend with me. I know I don't give you a whole heck of a lot of information in these videos. It's just enough little ideas to teach you and to get you thinking. But I really do appreciate the time you take to do that. And I look forward to seeing you next time. We'll see you. God bless you.